So segueing a bit from last week's civilization or chaos, the outsider may find it difficult to imagine that this unassuming, silent little man was a dynamic force, a center of unimaginable power, from which stream channels of force radiating all over the world. If one is with Baba for some time, it is impossible not to become aware that he is unceasingly active, like a kind of gigantic broadcasting station, sending out and receiving silent messages about which we know nothing. With him, one has a curious sense that history is being made and that nothing is real. To the Westerner, the master's life is so strange and different from anything elsewhere that he has experienced that there are moments he wants to rub his eyes and ask, am I real? Jung, when writing it in Man in Search of His Soul, says, quote, the man of the immediate present must, by virtue of his state, be solitary, as solitude alone frees him from all embracing, pristine unconsciousness that claims the bulk of mankind almost entirely. This describes Baba. One feels that his solitude must be immense, that he has been alone throughout eternity, and that he stands before a void out of which all things grow. Lack of space prevents us from giving any details of the new phase which took place in Baba's life at the end of 1948 and which terminated at the beginning of February 1952. Without warning, Baba announced to his hapless and bewildered Mandali that he was going to cut himself off entirely, and from them, perhaps forever. In fact, many thought that he might never again appear to them in the flesh. This story of the few he chose to embark with him on his strange adventure into the wilderness of India with no money and often no food, including the most incredible hardships, has been briefly described in two brochures, and that has a asterisk that says the new phase of Meher Baba's life, Meher Baba in the Great Seclusion. I guess that's the title of the brochures. Like Krishna, Baba certainly enjoins his men, quote, to forsake the fruit of action, end quote, and to have detachment in all things. He has gathered together those who were associated with him in former avataric incarnations, and it does not appear that he wishes to enlarge his close following. He lives in secret and works in secret. All he does is unknown, even to those who have been close to him for over 30 years. They do not know how he works or what he does, for such secret technique can neither be explained nor divulged. But one thing we should know and fully understand, even though such a state of feeling must be entirely incomprehensible to normal thinking. We want to impress on the reader that the master is never free from pain. For those who share the universal consciousness are never free from the suffering of this world. And as Baba has said, I suffer every second of my life untold agony. Since the master neither speaks nor writes, his communications by means of the letterboard can sometimes give rise to slight differences of interpretation. For this reason, oral statements from others, unless expressly confirmed by the master, should be accepted at times with reserve. It stands to reason that so great a spiritual personality as Mir Baba should have enemies, and our Pharisees are quick to exploit all situations and stories that do not redound to the master's credit. Thus, there are reports without foundation circulating, particularly in America, where great Eastern masters tend to be misrepresented. It is therefore incumbent on us to be circumspect. For example, childish claims to be the master's channel or direct mouthpiece harm the cause. Here it is appropriate to give Baba's warning. I want you all to know that whatever you do, this is a quote from Baba, I want you all to know that whatever you do, good or bad, the one thing not forgiven by God is to pose as that which as that which you really are not. Also, we quote Ramju Abdullah, quote, the faith and belief in a master and for the master's teachings has its own value, but more harm than benefit results when that faith and belief, on the one hand, is made use of as free leave and license to find fault with and abuse others. And on the other hand, to condone one's own acts of omission and commission against the very teachings that one believes in the spirit of a spoilt child of the master, without actually living a life befitting the child of that master. So that was Ramju. Millions of people in India consider the master to be the avatar of this age. His Christian followers believe him to be the reincarnation of Jesus. To his Muslim devotees, he is the promised Mahdi. His Parsi disciples believe him to be their Zoroaster coming to life again. Come to life again. And his Hindus say that he is the 10th divine manifestation, the Kalanki avatar who has to destroy the evil in this world. Marianne, could you unmute and continue?
Baba's own master, Baba's own master Upasni, who brought him down to normal consciousness gave his expression of love and reverence for his pupil when he said, quote, "An avatar is born in your person, Mirwan," close quote. No matter what people may think or say, the mere fact that a man does not speak and can at the same time command the devotion of millions is phenomenal. Baba's name does not make headlines in the newspapers. There is no professional organization in the shape of advertisement through press and radio. On the few occasions that the master emerges into publicity by giving darshan, that's grace and blessings, to the people, there are no oratorical outbursts. Only a few simple messages given over the microphone, and that is all. Except for occasional shouts of Ki Jai, meaning hail the avatar, and the singing of bhajans, songs of devotion, silence reigns over the masses, an intangible influence. What is this influence that will make the untutored peasants walk great distances under the burning sun from the scattered hamlets and bring all classes of humanity to see him? It is because they have heard that a God-man is in the vicinity. It is a revelation and an inspiration that moves people to tears to see the tens of thousands who gather to pay their homage. To all such gatherings, all can come, irrespective of caste or creed, those of high and lowly estate, the untouchables and the beggars. None is turned away. Their demonstrations of devotion and spiritual yearnings is a sight that can never be forgotten and is an overwhelming proof of the extraordinary spiritual influence which Baba wields. Considering he does not speak, it is all the more amazing, in fact, as his Mandali would say, his silence speaks. And what does Baba do? The important work that Baba does in these individual contacts is that he actually sows the seed of divine love, which must someday fructify according to the individual response. Divine love sustains the universe and is that mysterious, intangible force which holds the atom together. The greatest force on earth, which no scientist can find nor explain. It is this force in Meher Baba, which is the secret of the inexplicable ethereal fluid, which affects the character and destiny of those who meet him. The master says he performs no miracles, but his life is a living miracle, and all those close to him have stories they can tell, which can only be regarded as miraculous. Let it be understood, however, that miracles have nothing to do with spirituality and are of no more value to a master than conjuring tricks. The real miracle is that which brings about a sincere change of heart in any person influenced by him. As the Sufi master, Al-Hogwari, said, quote, "The novice desires to gain miracles, but the adept desires to gain the giver of miracles," close quote. One of the most mysterious and puzzling features of the master's work for humanity is his contact with his spiritual agents, of whom there are many incredible stories. Little is known about them or how they work, beyond the fact that externally they appear to be leading normal lives, and the Master alone knows their secret status. Generally, when they appear, it is in normal circumstances and nothing unusual is observed. But sometimes there are occasions when difficult circumstances may necessitate the immediate and supernormal visitation of an agent in order to solve some delicate situation or even to save a life. According to Meher Baba, the avatar always has his spiritual agents. These agents hold definite and distinct offices. Just as the Christ state, or the Nabuwat-e-Mohammadi, is the office held by the Sahib-e-Zaman, or Sahibi Wat, so also are there always his agents. Of these, there are three types. The direct agents, who are very few. There is, in fact, a direct agent for every continent. These beings receive their instructions directly from the Sahabe-Zaman himself. We now come to the other agents, the indirect agents, who again are few, and who, in their turn, receive all their instructions from the direct agents. Then there is the last or third class of agent. These are called borrowed agents. They are very numerous and take their orders from the indirect agents. The principal agents are always stationed on the fourth plane, and through the powers they wield on this plane, the plane of miracles, they act for the Sahib-e-Zaman. He seldom performs miracles himself, for should he wish to do so, he would be obliged to station himself on the fourth plane for the time being. On the other hand, the agents for the Sahib-e-Zaman never use their powers for their own benefit, only for their master. They are, of course, exempt from the dangers of the plane to which the ordinary aspirant is exposed, unless he is helped to cross them unconsciously by his master. We now quote direct from the Wayfarers regarding the few notes Dr. Duncan has given us about Baba's contacts with some of these mysterious personalities. This is a quote. Place: Albuquerque, New Mexico, USA. Date: December 1934. Quote, Baba has explained that this is one of the very rare agents. He is the direct agent of America. In 1934, when Baba and a few of his disciples were on their way to California, the train stopped at Albuquerque for a short time. Baba spelled out the word Indian on the palm of his hand and went with R dash away from the station into a small street nearby. At a street corner, they noticed two American Indians. One was selling bows and arrows, and he walked away as soon as Baba approached. The other, a tall, impressive figure with a red band tied round his head, stayed where he was. And for a few moments, Baba and he stood facing one another, each looking intently into the other's eyes. Baba then abruptly walked back to the station. quote continued, place, Barcelona, Spain, date, November 1933. He is one of the third type of agent, a borrowed agent. He was a policeman who always seemed to be on duty at any time of day that Baba came into the plaza, meaning public square. The policeman kept glancing at Baba in an indefinably significant way. And when those with Baba inquired about him, Baba explained that he was one of his agents. Continuing, quote, place, Lugano, Switzerland, date May 1932. A borrowed agent. Baba and his group were on a steamer on the Lake of Lugano. There was an old man dressed in simple, poor clothes on the opposite side of the deck, whom Baba pointed out as one of his agents. One of the group asked how he should know this. Baba then took Dr. G's walking stick and asked those about him if they would believe him should the old man tap his own stick in the same way that Baba tapped Dr. G's stick. Baba then tapped Dr. G's, G with a dash, not identifying totally the person. Baba then tapped Dr. G's stick 2 or 3 times on the deck in a special way. And the old man, though he was not looking at Baba at the time, tapped his stick in exactly the same way. Baba then tapped again in a different way. And the old man again copied his taps exactly. This was done finally a 3rd time and again repeated exactly. Baba later sent someone to him with a piece of bread and butter, which he ate. Continuing the quote, place, Marseille, France. Date, question mark. November, question, 1936. A borrowed agent. One day when in Zurich, Switzerland, Baba said suddenly that he must reach Marseille before midnight the following day, since he had a spiritual appointment there. As soon as the party arrived in Marseille, Baba asked to be taken to the city park. And when he came to a particular part of it, he began walking to and fro on a gravel path with N dash and E dash on either side of him. N and E both noticed that on the other side of a small lawn, there was a young man sitting on a park seat. Baba eventually took a loop around the lawn and walked straight past the young man who, as Baba passed, stood up and bowed his head in a reverential way to Baba. Baba then walked off, explaining that the man was one of his agents. Next, place, Moscow, Russia. Date, 1933. Paren, no direct contact with Baba, Paren. He was an indirect agent who took orders from, quote, Cristiano of Rome. Paren, Q period, V period. One of Baba's English disciples was ordered by Baba to go to Moscow on his way back to China. Paren, he had a job in China. Paren, and give a certain article to an old man who would be dressed in a long garment and would have the physical appearance of the old man seen at Santa Margarita. Q period, V period. Baba explained that he would be very difficult to find. This disciple hunted high and low all over Moscow for 3 or 4 days and was about to leave to catch his connecting train to Nanking, where he saw an old man sitting outside a church who answered to Baba's description. He approached him, gave him the article from Baba, and set off at once for the station. Place, Rome, Italy. Date, July 1933. He is the direct agent for Europe. Baba and a group of his disciples were in the Aranjo al Corso. This man drove very slowly past in a Fiat car, driving the car himself. He was a fattish, middle-aged, blonde-headed man, looking apparently a typical inconspicuous bourgeois citizen. Baba explained that he lived in Rome and had a wife who knew nothing of his spiritual status. Baba calls this direct agent for Europe Cristiano. Continuing the quotes. Place, Santa Margherita, Italy. Date, July 1933. A borrowed agent, K, one of Baba's mandali, first saw him. He was an old man with long hair and beard who was leading a little boy by the hand. As he passed K, he greeted him in the Hindu fashion with hands palm to palm before his face. A little while later, when Baba and the Western group were on the seashore, they noticed this old man with the little boy walking back and forth, the old man glancing frequently in a significant way at Baba. Baba later explained that he was one of his agents and that he was very similar in appearance to another agent whom H, one of his English disciples, would have to contact later in Moscow. H, however, had missed seeing him as he was not present on the beach at the time, in spite of having been called by Baba. The result of his not having seen him was that his work in Moscow was made much more difficult. Continuing, quote, place, Sing Sing Prison, Ossining, New York, USA, date December 1931. A borrowed agent. Baba was staying at Harmon, and late one afternoon, he suddenly said that he wished to go to the prison close by. He was driven to the prison, and the car was halted near the gates. Baba then covered his head in a shawl and sat silent for a while. He afterwards explained that he had an important agent in the prison who would be freed when he, Baba, broke his silence. End quote. The most impressive story that I have heard about agents is one which happened in California. It was narrated to me by the persons concerned. N period and E period, devotees of the master, were motoring and had gone for a long drive in the Indian Reserve. They were climbing a lonely mountainside. The car presently was unable to progress further, being stopped by a row of large stones drawn across the road. Obviously, it was dangerous to proceed. A landslide, perhaps? E, the driver, looked round and noticed that there was a detour up to the bridge above, the track going across the dried riverbed at their left. As she drove the car across, a voice suddenly called out, "Halt!" Startled, she looked round to see an old Ford car standing at the very place they had just left. E, feeling as if compelled to do so, reversed the car and went back. There was a man sitting in the Ford. Without waiting for them, he called out, "Follow me," and proceeded to drive down the mountainside with E meekly following him. As the car wound away in front of them, N, turning round to have a last look at the bridge they had hoped to reach, noticed, on seeing it at a different angle, that there was a large gaping hole in the middle of it. So if their route had been uninterrupted, they would have fallen through the bridge. Suddenly, without a word of warning, the car in front of them went up in smoke, disappearing before their eyes. Simply vanished. Disconcerted and terrified, they now knew something of a supernatural order had occurred. On arrival home, they immediately went to Baba, who was staying in the vicinity, and related their adventure. Baba replied on the letterboard, as was his wont, "You were just about to be killed. I had to send one of my agents to the rescue." Meher Baba has said that he will bring together all religions and cults like beads on one string and revitalize them for individual and collective needs. Meanwhile, he remains as yet an enigma to us all, for until his manifestation has taken place, we have no means of ascertaining if he really is the spiritual symbol of this era as being a divine incarnation. That is, the spiritual personality of worldwide significance, the second advent. There are many today who claim to be messiahs and world teachers, and Baba does not appear concerned at present to prove who he is. He seems only concerned with his secret work in preparation for the new era. The time is getting short, and we shall soon know. This book seeks to show that some form of divine intervention alone can save humanity from extinction. For science has become the victim of dangerous and unscrupulous forces, and those who worship scientific ingenuity now realize with dismay that modern mechanical marvels may be weapons designed to destroy civilization rather than to advance it. Footnote: we understand it is now technologically possible to start building a, quote, space station or artificial satellite, which would revolve in an orbit round the Earth. Though there are many problems to be solved, connected particularly with rocket propulsion, before such an aim can be reached. The first nation to establish a manned space station might be able to dominate the world. Continuing. As we scan the threatening horizon, we envisage only one solution: the spiritual revolution of the conditions of our immediate future. For we see in the last analysis that our survival depends on the spiritual quality of life and not on power politics. In a recent message in India, Baba said, "Ordinary persons are caught up in the universe and its allurements, though the entire universe is nothing but the shadow of God or truth. The masters are always immersed in the joy of union with God and can never be caught up in the mazes of the illusory creation. Just as ordinarily we do not pay attention to the shadows, so the masters do not pay attention to the universe, except to divert the attention of humanity from the shadow to the substance." The purpose of life is to realize our oneness with the infinite. This can be achieved through love for God. Divine love makes us be true to ourselves and to others. It makes us live honestly, comprehending that God Himself is infinite honesty. Divine love is the solution to all our difficulties and problems. It frees us from every kind of binding. It makes us speak truly, think truly, and act truly. It makes us feel one with the whole universe. Divine love purifies our hearts and glorifies our being.
Fabulous. Thanks, Marian. We can pick up next week at that spot.